Let's take a look at the one colour tubular cast on for the mysterious disappearing dots scarf. I'm going to begin with my tail yarn as my bottom piece of yarn and my ball yarn as my upper piece of yarn. And I'm going to hold them under tension between my thumb and finger. I'm going to keep the first stitch on the needle using my finger, so I'm going to press it quite firmly. Then I'm going to reach away from me, over the top of that back yarn, under both yarns, and knit that front yarn back under that top piece of yarn. And magically that makes 2 stitches, but only if you didn't let this one get away. And the first time you do this, be prepared to start it quite a few times, and in fact I would suggest practicing this in 2 colours. Once you've got that first pair on there, every pair is the same. Keep tension with the thumb and finger of the left hand. Reach over the front yarn and knit that back yarn round the needle and back under the front. And the new stitch should go all the way round the needle and settle at the 6 o'clock position. Now take a deep breath, and this time reach over the back yarn, come under both yarns, and purl that front yarn away from you. Reach over the front yarn, go back over the back yarn and knit that yarn up towards you. Reach over the back yarn, go under both, purl that front yarn away from you. You're doing this knitting and purling action, and the yarn goes round the needle anti-clockwise every time. If you twist the yarn round the needle the other way, it simply means that one of your stitches is going to be mounted backwards when you work it on the next row, so you can just sort it out on the next row. But if you can get into the hang of rotating normally, then you won't have any sorting out to do. The stitches go on the needle in pairs. This first one is a knit, that second one is a purl, and it looks like a purl. Knit, purl. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs. Once you get started, you'll develop a rhythm. But do lots and lots of these, practice them. Take them off the needles and do it again. You'll get more and more even with every time you do it. And I like to do my tubular cast on onto a pair of needles that's at least 1 size smaller than I'm going to be working most of the rest of the scarf on. I'm going to do my first couple of rows on these smaller needles, and that stops the end of the scarf from flaring out. If you think of the tip of the knitting needle as a clock face, you always want to settle the stitch at the 6 o'clock position at the bottom of the clock face. So reach over and knit that back yarn forward and settle it at 6 o'clock. Reach away from you, under both, towards you, and pull that stitch back and settle it at 6 o'clock. So this time I've used a piece of that back yarn to go around the needle and kept this front one fairly tight. This time I've let the front one go round the needle and kept the back yarn fairly tight. So it's a sort of alternating action, making knits and purls. And I'm going to keep on going until I have 17 pairs, which is just enough for the swatch. Now, to show you what's going on, if I was to slip the last few pairs, now remember that last one's going to be very wobbly because practically nothing is holding it, it's just a loose flop of yarn around the end of the needle, so that can disappear very easily. But if I just drop these off the needles and hold them flat, you might be able to recognise this as 2 ordinary rows of knitting. And I've got the purl bumps facing me. So these 2 loops down here are knit stitches, and those 2 at the top, when they're folded up, are going to be your purl stitches. So I'm just going to remake the stitches that I've dropped off, because it's actually quite hard to restart this cast on when you're part way through. So you might find you start it several times. And the other thing is keep it on a straight needle, not a circular, because as soon as it gets to the flexible floppy section of a circular, it will come undone and sort of untwist, and it will lose its structure. So always do this onto the straight section of a circular if you only have a circular needle to work with. So I think I have my 17 pairs now. And notice that I'm holding tight at the end to stop this from untwisting. So I'm finishing with a pearl at the end of this. I've done knit pearl pairs all the way along. And now I'm going to rotate it, making sure I don't let go of that last stitch, because there's nothing to it.